Thank you for joining us for this second part of knowing and changes. In this one, we want to focus on knowing how much of your spouse, even your own children, do you think you know? It's always a big question because when we think we know, and what we think we know is not what we experience, what we see, it becomes very, very difficult to deal with. Because human beings, we don't enjoy that. And we react differently to what we think we know that we now find that we don't know. So, how much of your spouse do you think you know?
That's a very important question.
Mm-hmm.
And not just your spouse, how much of yourself do you know?
Yeah, I think that's a
How
good
much
one.
of myself do I know?
I think that's very important.
Because several times when I see some people in certain situations, I don't rush to blame them or to pass judgment because I think I'm like, how would I react if I were in their shoes,
Mhm.
if I was in that situation? So at times we don't know what we ourselves will do until we are in that situation. So when you think about your spouse and they behave a certain way, you really shouldn't be thinking, I don't know my husband anymore. I don't know because you don't know. We don't know each other. We don't even know ourselves. So that's why we say that instead of blaming each other or instead of evoking negative emotions as a result of the changes we have experienced in our spouse, we need to know the Jesus, the God in them, the Jesus in them, that Jesus that is the same yesterday, today, and forever, the
Mhm.
only one that does not change. And it is that same Jesus that we have to see in ourselves as well,
Mhm.
because it's the one that will make us to react in a positive way through changes.
Yeah. It's very, this issue of what you think you know of yourself, you don't even know. Recently we were going through uh, great politicians, great leaders of countries who have had a particular position in the past,
Mm.
and they think that is them,
Yeah.
and we find that they've changed. Even they don't even know themselves. That's a typical example of us not knowing ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see people who has made great speeches in great world events,
Mhm.
but in a different situation they've changed.
Mm.
So you find that people think they know themselves, but they don't.
Yeah.
Now, if people, even you, don't even know yourself, if I don't know myself, how much of my spouse do I think I can know?
Yeah.
So if my spouse is now subjected to situations different from now, how will I be able to blame her for the change?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
sorry.
so
And
carry on.
that reminds me of a global man of God. Recently, I was watching him on TV, and he said that he and his wife they courted for 5 years.
Mhm.
Notwithstanding, for the first few years of their marriage, it was like hell let loose. And that means even if you have, no matter how long your courtship is or how long you date for, it still doesn't mean you would know them. Because the situation that they find themselves later, they have not experienced it.
Mhm.
And therefore, they didn't know how they will react. You didn't know how they will react as
Mhm.
well. Therefore, knowing yourselves is a very great thing that we need to be mindful of.
Mhm. You see, and we want to for human mind, knowing is a point event. When you say, "Oh, I know this man," "Oh, I know this woman," that is a point event. Point event in the sense that you only know them under that circumstance,
Yeah.
under that situation, in that particular country,
Mm.
or whatever you know them. That's the knowing. That is the point knowing. You know, you can see that this is why if somebody like you see people move from Africa to Europe and very I cannot even believe this is the wife I married. I cannot even believe this is my husband I married. It's not because the man has physically changed, but due to the environment he or she has moved to, they've changed. So
And the situation
and the
in the
situation have
environment.
changed, and this is what we're saying, that when it comes to change and knowing, you will never know enough of your spouse.
Yeah.
Don't say I know enough of him, I know enough of her, and therefore he has changed for bad. That is wrong.
No.
That's not a way to approach our
Yeah.
relationship. We should approach our relationship by focusing on one that cannot change. Any relationship that will last is not focusing on the spouse or whatever. You focus on one that cannot change.
That's right.
So when you are looking at this person who you think has changed, you look at them through, you see a change for better. Well, if I was poor, now I'm very rich. Of course, my wife won't mind that. But if I was not, the other way around, then she needs to cope with somebody who's not as rich. So what will she do in that situation? She needs to look onto him who can provide all the time. That's the way we deal with it. And I think that's so important for us to mention that this change, this knowing we are talking about, you will never know enough of anyone.
No.
You can never know enough of anyone. We've seen, these are things we see every day on our news. You see somebody you know some 10 years ago, 50 years ago, is no more the same person. And that is whom we are.
And that's why the only person that we need to keep knowing more and more, and we can get even, we need to know him. He's inexhaustible. We need to know more and more of him is Jesus. That's the only person we need to know more of. As you are knowing more of Jesus, then you would reduce your negative reactions towards your spouse. It's true. Because instead of seeing them, you will be seeing Jesus in them. You'll be seeing Jesus in them. So we ourselves, we don't know ourselves. So let's not keep thinking, oh, I don't know the man I married again. I don't know the woman I married again. So, and just to conclude, I would like to read something, from I find it very profound. A statement here from this our book, Making Adjustments in Your Marriage. Like I said earlier, this book is a resource that all couples must get. I recommend it strongly. The issue is not to change the spouse who is subject to change anyway, but the issue is to change your attitude towards the change. I'll read it again. I hope every couple gets it. The issue is not to change the spouse who is subject to change anyway, but the issue is to change your attitude towards the change. So the issue is about ourselves, your own attitude when you are going through the process of changing your marriage. The issue is not to change your spouse. The husband is not to change the wife. The wife is not to change the husband. But the issue is to change yourself. You must work on yourself when you are going through the process of change. And that is why we say you hold on to Jesus. He is the one alone that will help you and can sustain you through this process of change.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.